Well guys, earlier today I posted a video on my second channel, Financial Education 2, and in the comment section of this video, everybody was wanting me to talk about Tesla, and I do understand why. Tesla had their autonomy day today where they met with a ton of investors and talked about their autonomous vehicles and how that's going to go in the future. And I want to go through the main takeaways from those presentations, which were like hours long. I watched the whole thing. So I'm going to go through some of the main points they brought out that I want to share with you guys today. Then a lot of people are asking me about Tesla stock, buying Tesla stock before earnings, if they should sell Tesla stock, things like that, what moves I'm going to be making. So once we're done talking about the autonomous stuff, then we'll talk about Tesla stock, all right? So I hope you guys enjoy this. I know a lot of you guys want it. Make sure you smash that thumbs up button as always, all right? So let's talk about the main takeaways from the Tesla Autonomy Day. First is they just talked so much about the approach and how different the approach is for Tesla versus other companies. They didn't really go out of their way to talk about this, but a lot of people ask questions about, hey, so-and-so company is going about it this way when it comes to the hardware, the software, or just kind of like the thought process Tesla uses versus maybe what some of the other companies are doing, such as cruise automation and some of those other companies. Obviously, Google is big into self-driving, and you've got all these different companies trying robo taxis and things like that. And it's like, well, this company's doing it this way. Why are you guys doing it this way? And just what I believe I saw from that presentation was just Tesla has a very different approach to a lot of these processes than what the other companies do. It doesn't necessarily mean Tesla is right or Tesla is wrong. Obviously, many different engineers will have different opinions. Oh, this company's doing it right, this company's doing it wrong. I'm just going to say Tesla's approach is a little different than a lot of what these other companies are doing out there. And I think that's just something you got to understand as a Tesla shareholder, if you're someone buying Tesla stock in general. Just the processes Tesla's going about doing it are different than other companies. And we're going to still see who's the winner here in the long term. The winner being the one that gets to a level 5 first and does this very well and gets us on a wide scale. And I would say it looks like Tesla's processes are in the lead as of right now, okay? Number 2, Tesla looks over all crashes and overtake data. This is something I was very interested to hear. Basically, anytime you have your Tesla on, self-driving mode or something like that, okay? Something where, autopilot is engaged with that vehicle. Anytime, obviously, there's a crash with the vehicle, the Tesla engineers are going to look over that and they're going to say, why did this crash happen? Was it the Tesla's fault? Was it the driver of the Tesla's fault? Maybe it was, they overtook the car and that caused an accident. Maybe it was another car from another lane causing the accident, things like that. They look over all that data whenever there's a crash, but not only that, anytime you overtake the car when it's on autopilot, they look at why did that happen? What went wrong with autopilot that the driver felt like they needed to take control of the car if anything went wrong, or maybe the driver was just like insecure about, how the autopilot was going or something like that. So let's say you're going on an on-ramp and there's cars merging in. Let's say a driver, overtook the car. Why did they overtake that car? I think that data is extremely, extremely important because you're going to get to understand on a very, very high level why a driver overtakes a car like that. Why do they do that? Very important. Number 3, Tesla has a magnitude more self-driving data than any other company out there, and it's not really close. It's a big takeaway I had from this. I had this idea way before today's presentation, but just like if you compare them to anybody else that's in the self-driving space, there's really no one that has even a remotely close amount of data that Tesla has. Why? Because Tesla has mass amounts of vehicles out on the road compared to anybody else that's, testing self-driving. All these other companies that are, maybe startups or companies that are becoming a little bigger through a ton of funding that have, self-driving fleets or things like that out there that are testing. What do they have out there? 5 cars, 10 cars, 20 cars. It's a very limited amount. When you consider Tesla has hundreds of thousands of cars out on the road, probably actually more than 1 million cars out on the road, but hundreds of thousands in terms of cars that people actually use autopilot on a daily basis or a weekly basis or something like that. In all those cars with all that self-driving data, that all goes to Tesla. So Tesla's just getting a lot more real world data from all different states around, and even, different parts of the world, tons of different data that they can adjust and, kind of fix the models and the artificial intelligence and kind of work that compared to anybody else. And that's just a huge, huge advantage for Tesla. And I think it's something that will, get them to level 5 much faster than anybody else and get them to a place where their vehicles are much safer than anybody else out there, okay? Number 4, this just kind of brought me the point that I think people still don't understand, what makes a company so valuable. And the real thing is data is what makes a company so valuable. If you think about these massive tech giants that have built up over the past, decades, basically. Facebook, Google, Amazon, what makes these businesses so valuable at the end of the day? And the real answer is the data they have and the data they're able to collect on users. That's truly what makes a platform like Facebook so valuable, okay? It's not just the fact that, all these, billions of people are using the different Facebook properties, but it's the fact that they know so much data about you that advertisers can use to run advertisements to you. Google is the same exact thing, okay? Whether we're talking about Google search, whether we're talking about YouTube, which you're watching right now, Amazon, okay? Amazon, what makes Amazon so valuable? The massive amount of data they have around companies when it comes to Amazon Web Services and their retail products when it comes to you actually placing orders. Every time you place an order, there's data being collected there on the backside that's basically saying, oh, we need to suggest these type of products in the future. And then it goes into the algorithm and says, okay, somebody bought this product, they're more likely to buy this other product in the future. This is what makes these type of companies so valuable at the end of the day. And here we are with Tesla just having the, mass amounts more data than anybody else out there when it comes to self-driving. And self-driving is, a platform that's going to be worth hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars in the future. And you got to say, who's going to have the most data here by a mile? It's without question Tesla, and there's no one even close in that space, guys. Number 5, Elon basically said Tesla will have robo-taxis in 2 years. Robo-taxis meaning, basically Teslas that drive around and pick people up and take people wherever they want to go, kind of like you do with an Uber or Lyft now, but with literally no driver in there. He said within 2 years, he said it's just going to depend on regulation and, what countries or what states or who would allow this first, who would allow, the pilots out there, the test pilots. But he says they're going to be able to have robo-taxis in the market within 2 years. This is a huge thing because if Tesla could have a massive fleet of robo-taxis in a few different areas or a few different states or cities, they could be one of the first companies to really have that, because there's really, of the other competitors, there really isn't anybody that's really has robo-taxis to the full extent where they don't have drivers in them yet, okay? I know in Tempe, Arizona, there, Google has a product basically out there with Waymo that basically they have robo-taxis, but it's really not a robo-taxi because there's still someone in the front seat who kind of like watches the car and whatnot. It's not really a robo-taxi. Tesla looks like it could be potentially the first to truly have robo-taxis in the market. We'll have to see about that, but he says a lot has to do with regulation, who actually allows that first, okay? Number 6, robo-taxis will be worth at least $100,000+. They mentioned several $100,000, okay? And here's the thing, Model 3 costs about $38,000 to make a base model, maybe a little lower than that roughly, and that price is going to be going down over time as batteries get cheaper. Not just that, it's the parts they're going to be able to remove, and this is something I never even really contemplated before. Tesla, Elon Musk brought out a great point in regards to like the Model 3s in the future, like these robo-taxis Tesla will have. He was basically stating, they're going to be able to take parts away from the cars as these parts become less and as someone has no interest in driving the car anymore, you can also take away a steering wheel, okay? And you can start building Model 3s with no steering wheel. You can take away the pedals, because why do you need pedals if the car always drives itself all around? Why do you need shifters? Things like that. All of a sudden you can start to take away thousands upon thousands of dollars of costs of basically you put these things into a car now, but in 3 or 5 years when the car drives itself completely level 5, why do you need a steering wheel at that point? You don't. It would actually make the car, more unsafe to have a steering wheel and actually have a driver driving it, right? If you have perfect, level 5 autonomy, or you have pedals in a car, okay? So that is a very interesting thing, that these robo-taxis, they basically, as a value per car, they value them at least $100,000, if not several $100,000. And when you're talking about a car that costs $38,000 as of now to build roughly, and going down in the future, you can see this can be a very, very profitable endeavor for Tesla. And something I'll bring up here is it sounds more and more like Tesla's main competitor now at this point. It's not really the car companies. I think they understand they're just going to beat all the other car companies out there because they're so far ahead in the electric wave and the self-driving wave compared to everybody else that all the other car companies, the vehicle makers, are really going to be less of a competitive threat in future years. They have been in the past, but the Tesla's just so far in front of these guys that they're really not the competition. In my opinion, Tesla's, if you really listen to that presentation today, they're really viewing Uber and Lyft as the main competition. This is something very important to pay attention to, okay? Number 7, Elon Musk basically said, you know, they expect to get to a place where they're building 10,000 plus cars per week in production this year in 2019. Their big goal was to get to 5,000 per week production last year in 2018. Now they're talking about 10,000 plus. We'll see what happens. I think once they get the Shanghai factory on, I have no belief that they can't hit 10,000 plus once the Tesla Shanghai factory gets up and running. And that baby's getting built really, really fast, okay? Number 8, level 5 autonomy coming in 2020, Elon basically stated, okay? He believes, you know, the full autonomy, like we're talking full self-driving, city streets, all that stuff. He believes that's going to be a 2020 thing, okay? And another important thing he brought out was basically if you're not buying a Tesla today, it's kind of a very, very dumb financial move. And I talk about this on the channel. I've talked about this a million times in the past. Basically, if you look going forward, you have to have an electric vehicle, okay? So if you're not buying an electric vehicle now, like what are you doing? Why would you buy a new gas vehicle? You know, any years in the future, why would you do that? Just for the mere fact that, you know, 3 or even 5 years into the future, who's gonna want a gasoline car? No one's gonna wanna buy a new gasoline car. Maybe used gasoline cars, maybe it makes sense, but if you're buying a new car in 5 years from now, who in their right mind would buy an ICE vehicle? It literally makes no sense, okay? So, which means if you want good resale value, you got to buy electric vehicles, you know, moving forward basically, and then self-driving. In 5 years, who's going to want a vehicle that does not have self-driving? It like literally wouldn't make sense, okay? It's like going backwards literally. So basically, Elon's kind of saying basically as simple as possible, it's a dumb financial move to not buy a Tesla right now and buy some other vehicle. I think that's a very important point there. And he basically stated that Tesla has to do a better job of explaining this to consumers out there. And I agree with this. Tesla has to do a better job because some of us understand this, right? And we understand like you know, going anytime in the future now, if you buy a nice vehicle, a new one I'm talking, you know, fresh off the lot, it's just a really bad financial decision because it's just going to depreciate at even a faster clip than ever before because it doesn't have self-driving and it's not electric. And so if you're going to resell that vehicle 3, 5, 7 years, who's going to really want to buy that at the end of the day, okay? So that's a very important point he brought out. We'll have to see if they get to really like a level 5 autonomy in 2020. I think it's very, very possible because they are so close at this point in time. If you look at the real world data and you're driving in some of these Teslas and what they can already do right now, you give it another year and a half, and it's going to be fun to see where Tesla's at. So that is definitely a very possible thing. If not, maybe 2021. We'll have to see what happens with that as far as level 5 goes. Okay, now let's talk a bit about Tesla stock. Obviously, Tesla earnings are coming up here in less than 48 hours. Getting a lot of questions about this, my opinion. Let's get into that now. Alrighty guys, now that we talked a little bit about the Tesla Autonomy Day today, now let's go ahead and talk about Tesla stock that all you guys want to talk about. And basically Tesla's coming out with earnings less than 48 hours from now. A lot of people are wondering, am I going to buy more Tesla shares here before the earnings? Am I going to sell my Tesla shares? Obviously I hold Tesla shares. And I want to kind of talk you through a few things here, okay? So number one, something you got to expect, you know, understand with these earnings, it's not much as expected, okay? Most of the numbers, we kind of already know them. We don't know specific EPS numbers and, you know, things like that. But most of the production numbers and deliveries and a lot of those numbers, we already know at this point in time. So, and there's just not a lot expected from these earnings. The stock has fallen and fallen and fallen over the last several months. So basically the earnings are kind of expected to be blah or bad earnings essentially for this current quarter they're about to report here, okay? So that's kind of good news if you're a long-term shareholder, you know, from a long-term shareholder perspective, because you never want to really go into an earnings where everything in the world is expected to be great, because a lot of times a company will disappoint, then the stock will shoot down. Even if the earnings are bad, which a lot of people are expecting them to be bad, I'm not so sure the stock's going to fall a bunch just because, you know, a lot of people are already expecting kind of like worst case scenario with these current earnings, okay? Second thing is guidance is going to be very, very important, okay? The guidance is going to be the more important thing, and that will be what actually drives Tesla stock in the future days, future weeks, and probably even over the next few months, is what they have to say around their guidance numbers for this upcoming quarter, which is April, which we're already in. The April through June quarter are going to be very, very important. The previous quarter was January, February, March, okay? Now we're getting into April, May, and June quarter, and we should expect some strong deliveries guidance for the April through June quarter, and the reason being is if we look at the past quarter, we saw, you know, big production numbers, but weak delivery numbers. You know, obviously they opened deliveries up to China and Europe, and I think they just had a lot of troubles around, you know, basically getting those vehicles to those countries and situations like that. So in my opinion, we should see actually much stronger delivery numbers in the April through June quarter than what we saw basically in the January through March quarter, which is obviously a very good thing because Tesla makes their money when they actually deliver these cars and they actually, you know, get the money for those cars. So that's very important. So I'm actually expecting some pretty strong deliveries, much stronger delivery numbers in this upcoming quarter than basically the last quarter, okay? Now, number 3 is why buy or sell right before earnings, okay? This is something I hear a lot, and you know, just people would be like, Jeremy, should I buy this stock before earnings? Should I sell this stock before earnings? And I'm just kind of like, you should never make, in my opinion, an investment decision based upon whether a company's reporting earnings that, you know, in the next 2 days or the next 2 weeks or anything like that. You should always be making your investment decisions based on where you see a stock going over the next, you know, 2 to 5 years, in my opinion, okay? That's what you should really be doing. So regardless if Tesla's reporting earnings tomorrow or reporting earnings in a year from now or a month from now, it really shouldn't have any bearing on whether you buy or sell a stock. When you go to buy, when you go in to put in your little buy order, your sell order on Robinhood or Fidelity or TD Ameritrade or whoever you do your trades through, okay, you should be thinking about valuation. Valuation is the key. Do you believe that stock is undervalued? Do you believe that stock is at fair value? Do you believe that stock is overvalued, okay? Most of the time, if you feel a stock is overvalued, it makes sense to sell it. If you feel like, you know, over the next 2 to 5 years, that company is significantly undervalued, it pretty much doesn't matter if the, you know, earnings are coming up. You should always hold that stock if that is your belief. Because why would you sell that stock and then it goes up 10, 20% on those earnings and then you just sold a stock you believe is, you know, severely undervalued? That's just usually a very, very bad financial decision, guys. So to make financial decisions based upon an earnings is a bad move. You should really be thinking about, you know, unless you feel like there's way better money to be put somewhere else. Like let's say you hold Tesla stock right now. You don't really believe in Tesla stock that much anymore, or you think it's just, you know, it's at fair value or whatever, and you got somewhere better, you think, to put the money, then go ahead and make that move. Like that's your move to make. If you feel like there's somewhere better for your money, but if you don't have anywhere better for your money to be put than Tesla shares and you believe they're undervalued, why would you sell Tesla stock? And at the same time, why would you specifically go out of your way to buy more Tesla shares right before earnings? If you have money on the sideline and you believe Tesla's undervalued, then you can go ahead and buy some more shares. And it really has nothing to do with earnings being tomorrow or the next day or something like that, because anything can happen on, you know, the day after earnings as far as a stock price move. You might as well flip a coin in the air and see what it lands on, heads or tails, in terms of whether that stock price goes down or up. I've seen companies report great earnings and their stock goes up a ton. I've seen companies report great earnings and their stock falls dramatically. I've seen companies report bad earnings and their stock goes up, and it's like, what, those earnings were awful. I've held stocks before they report horrible earnings and literally their stocks went up. I've had companies report horrible earnings and their stock got killed, okay? It's literally like flipping a coin on earnings and trying to guess where the stock price is going to go in the next day. All I can tell you is there's obviously not that much expected in Tesla for this current quarter. So the question is, will I be buying or selling Tesla shares before these earnings? And the answer is no, okay? Certainly not selling any Tesla shares before these earnings. Once again, it could go down, who knows, but that's every stock, okay? Every stock could go down on their earnings, okay? Like I said, it's like flipping a coin 50-50 on whether the stock will go up or down on those earnings. So if I'm looking at Tesla shares, I'd be much more interested in buying because I feel like Tesla's significantly undervalued. I'm not gonna go out of my way to buy this week. I'll probably buy some more Tesla shares over the next month. I wouldn't be, you know, I'd be very surprised if I don't add to my Tesla position over the next month or so, but I'm not specifically gonna go out of my way to buy Tesla shares here just because I don't have a lot of free money right now. I just actually, you know, got a Tesla, or I ordered a Tesla, which I'm supposed to get tomorrow. Model 3 performance version. I just got a big house, so like we have a lot of money going a lot of places right now. So if I had a lot of free money, I would buy more Tesla shares right now, just for the mere fact that I feel that the company's significantly undervalued. However, that doesn't mean you should go do it. You should be making decisions on what you believe is best, okay? But like I said, no matter what, over the next 30 to 45 days, I can definitely see myself buying some Tesla shares. They would have to shoot up a dramatic amount for me not to be interested in Tesla anymore at this position. I just feel like they're significantly undervalued. I feel like they're way, way ahead of everybody's in autonomy vehicles, and I feel like that's, you know, a market that's going to be worth hundreds of billions of basically market cap that will be added to Tesla over the coming years, and then they're way out in front of electric vehicles. You know, Elon basically pointed, he's like, name one electric vehicle that's anywhere even comparable to the Model S that came out in 2012. Nothing, and we're 7 years into it, guys, and there's still, where's the competition at, guys? So very important to kind of pay attention to there, but that's kind of my feeling about the autonomy day and Tesla stock buying or selling before earnings. I hope you guys enjoyed this. As always, make sure you smash that thumbs up button if you enjoyed this here today, and share this with somebody that enjoys talking about Tesla. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.